Hello and welcome back to another video. If you're looking for recommendations on what manhwa to read, then here are some that I've read recently that might be of interest. Manhwa titles are timestamped in the video for your convenience. Our first manhwa for today is Gourmet Gaming, a modern manhwa that I've currently read up to chapter 150 on. Its main character is Kang Min-hyuk, an individual who suffers from a rare disorder that makes it so that he can't stop eating and thus causing him to gain a significant amount of weight. Coming from a distinguished family, Min-hyuk has tried an assortment of different treatments and ways to try and combat the disorder, but to little effect. He's even quite dedicated in real life to following a regimented diet, although the portions are quite a lot, and exercising. One day though, he is shown the VR world of Athene, and although he has tried VR games before, this one says that you can taste food as if it was in real life, and this might just be the answer for him. The story is 8 out of 10. A comedic adventure, Min-hyuk's only goal in Athene is to eat, and eat. Nothing else stops him, and it turns out that he's quite good at the game as well. His intentions, though clearly, will put him on a path as he is our protagonist, so of course he's going to get a rare class related to cooking. Are you ready to join him, though, for a wild food ride? The characters are 9 out of 10. Min-hyuk's case is explained to be a special one, but it's even more nice to see that he's willing to put in the work behind it to get better. This makes you want to root for him as a main character and to hopefully be able to achieve what he wants so badly. Of course, the game ends up being quite the focus once it's introduced with its own NPCs and other players. The art is 9 out of 10. While this is a bit of an older title, I'm talking years old at this point, you may see some of its age show in the early chapters, but I assure you it will get better, and honestly it grows on you as you follow Min-hyuk's adventure. On the flip side, the cooking and the food aspect has and keeps delivering on its presentation. So if you're looking for a likable main character who plays a game for alternative reasons compared to others but is still able to grow powerful over time through his class, maybe even something similar to Overgeared's Grid's growth, but with a more cooking and food focus of course, then Gourmet Gaming is one for sure to start reading. This next manhwa is Dr. Player, a fantasy manhwa that I've currently read up to chapter 65 on. Its protagonist is Raymond, an illegitimate son of the king who was mocked and scorned all his life. The only road he found that could lead him to have an okay life was to become a healer, and yet even this seemed futile as his talents in the field are considered trash. One fortunate day though, he was presented with what we would identify as a game system screen in which he was given an occupation of a quote-unquote doctor, but in our modern sense. With this new information, he charges forward to try and improve this new yet unfamiliar knowledge correctly so that he can finally have what he's been wanting his whole life: respect and fame. And money. The story is 7 out of 10. An interesting premise, having a character from a fantasy world that has no concept of modern medical science be suddenly thrusted with this sort of information would be very jarring, and society, as is evident, won't even stand for it and call it the ravings of a madman. Raymond has a long road ahead of both grasping the aspects of modern medicine but also trying to slowly persuade those around him of the benefits and ways that this could save people. The characters are 8 out of 10. Considering this new knowledge, Raymond has quite an analytical mind to be able to, even with only some guidance, perform the necessary steps to achieve the prompts he's getting from the system. Those around him, of course, will do everything they can to prevent Raymond from succeeding with this method, but considering he's our protagonist, there must be some others who will be of help to him, right? The art is 8 out of 10 as well. It provides a good showcase of Raymond's struggle to succeed in life, but also in how his earnest attitude can be misunderstood by the masses. It offers a good art style that showcases the harsh realities of the world he lives in and how its quote-unquote class social structure really deprives people of opportunities and basic amenities. So if you're looking for a fantasy manhwa that has a main character slowly change societal norms through the introduction of modern medicine, then Dr. Player might be of interest to you. The Archduke's Adopted Saint is our next manhwa to look at. It's a regression manhwa that I've currently read up to chapter 53 on. Dina is the name of its main character. She was an orphan who was taken in by the temple of her world due to her potential for divine power. This isn't her first time though, as she has lived 14 lives already, being abused time and time again though by Lavienne, a person who she originally thought was a close friend, but was actually her greatest enemy. In this 15th life, she looks to move immediately by having someone powerful enough to get rid of her. The target she chooses is the Duchy of Terzia's Grand Duke, specifically when he visits the temple. This doesn't go her way because she now ends up being adopted by said Duke and renames Dina to Esther. Will Esther be finally able to live a decent life? Will Lavienne and those who support her come knocking? The story is 8 out of 10. With the multiple regressions that Esther has gone through, her mental state is not the greatest and it would turn anyone crazy. The Grand Duke, however, clearly has his own set of circumstances which cause him, and now Esther, the possibility to be a family together. After so many harsh realities and having to come to grips with her own powers, Esther finally looks to have a positive and loving family for the very first time in the many years under abuse. The characters are 8 out of 10. The quote-unquote villains of the story, Lavienne and the like, are actually well written in my opinion. They obviously have a motive and a goal to achieve, in which Esther was 14 lifetimes now an integral part in doing so. It's clear to see that there is more to see in the evil plans of these characters, and it makes me more curious on how this new 15th life of Esther's will turn up, considering it's a massive deviation with her being adopted now. The art is 9 out of 10. From Esther's very harsh treatment in her previous lives and the new more uplifting and loving atmosphere in her current one, this manhwa can clearly show the multitude of backgrounds, moods, and emotions that are needed to show the story effectively. So if you're looking for a fantasy regression manhwa where the main character has to live multiple lives, which they can go crazy from, before something changes, similar to looking for my one-night villainess from my previous videos, then the Archduke's Adopted Saint should be on your list. Our next manhwa is My Farm by the Palace, a fantasy manhwa that I've currently read up to chapter 64 on. Its main character is Hazel Mayfield, an individual whose family was originally a noble but lost their luster over time, leaving only Hazel and her grandfather as the last of its people. Due to this, Hazel was left in the care of a commoner family whose main occupation was farming, and this is where she grew to have a dream of having a farm of her own one day. Fast forward years later, and her grandfather provides her a deed of land that she can use as a farm, but it's in the capital. There's just a slight issue. Her land is right by the Imperial Palace. Will Hazel be able to navigate this new situation, and will she be able to achieve her dreams of having her own farm? The story is 7 out of 10. A quaint story about a girl just trying to have a farm. There are no heavy-hitting story beats compared to other manhwas that I've brought up before on this channel. With a mixture of slice of life and cooking elements, it provides an entertaining, uplifting mood that is projected through Hazel's attitude and soon those around her. The characters are 8 out of 10. Considering the Imperial Palace has its own set of characters, they are themselves amusing. Hazel's legal right to own the land and live there is quite the predicament for the palace, and over time Hazel will have to persuade them to not only stop interfering with her, but instead help her with her own endeavors. The art is 8 out of 10. With a light art style that gives off a very bright atmosphere, this manhwa is riddled with feelings of positivity and perseverance. Even Hazel's charm is brought out to its fullest with a personality that never chooses to give up but take each challenge head on. So if you're looking for a fantasy romance manhwa that has a light art style and provides a general feeling of positivity, but less of an initial rough patch unlike Fallen to Paradise from my previous videos, then My Farm by the Palace will be a good choice for you. Welcome to the highlight portion of today's video as we look at how one of the manhwas mentioned in the previous video is doing as I've continued reading it. Slight spoiler warning as we will be discussing the events in the manhwa since my previous opinion. Today's highlight is Mystic Musketeer, which I've now read up to chapter 158 on. Info card in the description will have links to my original opinion. Since our last encounter with Ha Li Ha, he's been tasked by the war effort to deal with the naval part of the coalition going on in the current war. For a quick background, an ongoing war is currently happening between the country Ha Li Ha is enlisted in versus a coalition between two smaller countries that have a ground and naval force respectively. Both countries are led by NPCs, but recruited players to be part of their forces. Throughout the latest chapters, we see Liha having quite the challenge of him being the only reinforcement for the Navy portion and somehow try to make it possible to win the war. This will prove to be difficult though, because how is Liha supposed to shoot a sniper when he's on a boat? My previous scores for Mystic Musketeer were 6 out of 10 for characters, 7 out of 10 for story, and 8 out of 10 for art. The characters do stay the same at 6 out of 10, as there hasn't been that much development or depth made for any of the characters really. Yes, there's been some mystery in some of the newly introduced characters, but nothing worth noting that would improve my opinion. It feels very online MMORPG-ish, which fits the vibe if anything else. The story goes down 1 point to 6 out of 10, as due to its action sequences and having to display the war that's happening, the pacing for the story has gone really slow. Binging chapters is what I would personally recommend, and it gives a better experience. The art, for what it's worth, gets a slight uptick by half a point to 8.5 out of 10, as the naval sniping scenes and overall action that Liha is able to push through in the chapters is great, and I do wish they utilized this a bit more. Maybe at some point, once this arc is done, this manhwa will gravitate towards more of Liha's story of his own hidden class in the game. While overall I have slightly lessening opinions of where it is now, there's still a hefty amount of content to consume for Mystic Musketeer, and if you haven't given it a shot before, I would say it's still a good one to binge. Would you agree or would you not? Comment down below your thoughts on Mystic Musketeer. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Write in the comment section down below what manhwa you've been reading and I might just take a look. Till next time though, have a good read.